My name is DiGaetano. You saw on the thing it said that I was telling these guys before, I was at Maritime College as quality control, which was a dip-off because last week I was head coach over at Maritime College, and then all of a sudden I was listed as quality control. So reality is I ended up leaving there, and I went to Fordham pretty much on Thursday because so Thursday Fordham meeting, Friday, day, get in car, drive to Poconos, get ready to go. Here we go. Change all the slides out, take all the logos off from whatever I put together, and rebrand some things in there from some other places that I've done too. But short story on that whole thing is I was actually at Fordham. Last couple of years I started off at Maritime College. I was there for about 10 years. I went to Nassau Community. I went over to Wagner. I was at Wagner for 2 years. A lot of clips I have will be there because that's where I was really coaching the linebackers. And last spring, I went over to Fordham as a special teams quality control, to be able to do some of the stuff I do in programming, do a lot of stuff with tackling. And then 4 days before the season starts for Maritime, the head coach, and from there, who I was there for 10 years, ends up becoming DFO at West Point. So there was nobody in-house to take the job. So when somebody said, hey, you were hired, I said, I wasn't hired, I was propositioned to go in and become a job, which is a little bit different. So I came in as the interim 4 days before. I hadn't been there in 4 years, didn't know one player, right? Didn't know really anybody, had a coaching staff, didn't really know any of the coaches, and we ended up winning 7 games, so it wasn't too bad. So kind of there. So short story, fast forward months later, and now I'm back at Fordham. Right, so that was pretty much that. They hired a new coach and all that stuff, but I was happy to do it for while I did it. I learned a lot from being in that seat. The good part about in that seat was I was able to, it went from the thing where you kind of go, well, can I do this? You get used to asking the coach, and then everybody was and then I go from asking to why is everybody asking me over this? Oh, that's right, I'm in charge. I forgot about that. So half the time the stuff, it took a while to get used to, but I still had the opportunity to coach our linebackers there. Probably not as much time to watch the film as I normally did when I was coaching in Wagner, but I had an opportunity to kind of work with some things which I'll incorporate today. And biggest thing I want to share is with everybody is mostly it's our everyday practice stuff when it comes to techniques. And they ask me what I want to talk about. I'm pretty passionate about a couple of things. One of the things I'm passionate about in the game of football is tackling. I'm doing another session later, but we get into this concept of tracking, right? We get into this concept of tracking a ball carrier, right? Tracking starts on the snap of the football. Tracking starts before the snap of the football, right, of it. So that's when I grade a lot of tackling. I look at it from a perspective of saying that the minute that I go ahead and read my key and it triggers me to do something, right, that's the start of the end goal, which is a tackle, right? The only difference is there's probably going to be some stuff in my way, and I got to fight through that stuff to be able to get to where I've got to get to. So the key, more than anything else, to me, when I'm doing this, is to build as much muscle memory as possible inside this and to keep this as simple as possible and scale it down. I want to say maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe even longer than that, one of the things that I did was I went through the entire playbook of everything that I called as a coordinator. And I went through every single thing that I potentially I could call technique-wise, and I listed down what techniques it would take. And I had a list that was like a spreadsheet that was probably 100 different fields of things I would have to teach just based off what I was assigning players to do. I purged my own system. And I was like, this will never happen with efficiency. So what I did was I said, it's got to boil down to about 3 or 4 things. I've got to find the common bond in every single thing that I do to create about 3 or 4 fundamental tools when it comes down to it. So now, when people go, talk to me about how you teach your linebackers, I was press or scrape. That's it. I don't want to hear anything else. Everything boils down to me, press or scrape, which I'll go through, right, with it too. So it's all really off of that kind of concept there, and it just kind of works back from there, and then you just tweak those concepts right there. So when we talk about, with our linebackers, a lot of times, you'll say, you press that or scrape that. That's it. That's it when it comes down to it. And then from there, the fundamentals you teach and the body positions and all the other stuff about staying square, that's the stuff we teach off of that stuff that happens there too. right? So really when it comes down to her, one of the best lines ever, when it comes down to defensive football from Phil Bennett when he was at Baylor a couple years back. And he said, the point of defensive football is to fit on the run and distribute on the pass. And that's really what it comes down to. Fit on the run, distribute on the pass. Anything else, right? You're going way above where you need to. But if you're not seeing, especially for a linebacker, because they're at the center of the entire defense, if you're not focused on it, if you're not, everything you're doing is about how they fit on the run or how they distribute on the pass, you're out of the scope of what you need to be. You need to be in that funnel at all times. So one of the things that we got to, and I said, well, I need to go ahead, I was listening to Gabe last night, for anybody who heard Coach Infante, he talks about like honesty, he talks about all that other stuff. So I said, well, I gotta be truthful with linebackers. Like, I gotta be truthful. Any position, we've gotta be truthful. So one of the things we developed was something called the 4 linebacker truths. These are the absolute 4 linebacker truths that we boiled down everything that we did do in our program, especially when I was at Wagner, and it stood true there. Okay? Number 1, okay? Everywhere there's a blocking scheme, you've got to give something to get something. You got to give something to get something. Okay? So that's number 1. So if he moves that way, somebody's moving that way. Right? If he moves that way, somebody's probably following him. Right? If he moves backwards, right, something's happening. So something's going to happen, right, where there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction somewhere. Right there. Okay? So that's going to be number 1. Okay? And here's the other one too. That I always stress. There is always a run through, even if you have to make it yourself. Right? There's always a run through. So when we talk with our guys, for the most part, it's always about somebody's making a run through. Somebody's accounted for, and then in there, somewhere in there is going to be a run through. Right? It may not be a clear run through, but you might have to punch through the run through. But the reality is, there's always a run through. There's always somewhere that there's a run through. And again, even if you have to make it yourself, and here's another one. Quarterbacks don't like to throw when there's players in their sight line. One of the big things. I said, quarterbacks don't like to throw when I have a different colored jersey in between me and the other one, and the intended receiver. They don't like to throw the football. And then the last one is always this one. I love this one. Stay as big as you can for as long as you can. Okay? So what I mean by that is, in everything that we do, we want to stay as big as we can for as long as we can and be able to react. So these are the things that we preach more than anything else. Like if it's not boiling down into here, okay, it goes back to this. Reads, okay, reactions, distributions, okay, fundamentals right there. When it comes back to staying big. Staying big, staying long, right? If I'm in the stands, RPO game, pop of my feet, whatever the case may be, I want to be able to stay big, right? But at some point in time, I'm going to have to get small, right? I'm going to have to get small when I'm approaching something, when I'm tackling something, when I'm bringing the ball carrier down, when I'm doing something, when I'm attacking a football, when I'm breaking on a football, something in there, I'm going to get narrow. I'm going to get small, right? But the longer I can stay big, and the more comfortable I have being in that position, the harder it makes it on the offense every single time. Okay? But once that run through is there, yeah, I gotta get narrow, I gotta get thin, I gotta do all sorts of stuff, there you go. Okay? I'm not gonna get crazy with scheme and reads too much because, again, everybody's got their deal. Okay? What we've evolved into when it comes to reads, I can kind of give you that. It's path to the back, followed by any contradiction. Path to the back, followed by any contradiction. And that just classifies everything. Pullers, sniffers, split flow, whatever the case may be. But it's really the footwork, I should say that, footwork of the back, and then it goes there. Now, why I do a footwork of the back is because a lot of it going in RPO game. Okay? That's what ends up happening. So we get a little bit of a truer read. I start to break down footwork of the back because when you really, really watch the footwork of the back, you really know how full of crap they are when it comes to their RPO game. I'm a firm believer that if you actually watch the footwork of the back, you figure out how well they coach their RPO game. And you can really distribute everything else off of that when you actually watch the difference between if the kid actually gets centered in there, turns his shoulders, ducks his arms, everything, because that's where I can go ahead and really say, you know what? It's nice and easy because they don't actually do that, right? I can see the details in their coaching through that read more than anything else, okay? The details of that coaching, because a lot of times we know linemen are not as much firing off anymore as much as they're collecting, right? As they're moving to a spot and they're collecting, that they're going ahead and taking, like all that changes from week to week. The one thing that doesn't change is the footwork of the back too much, right? They're aiming for them. Because what happens is, if I've got a guy in A-gap, or I've got a guy in a nose that slants, or I've got a 3 technique or whatever, they're going to handle that differently up front for different things that they have to account for. A lot of times, that back is not going to change what they do. They're going to be consistent in what they kind of do. So that's why I kind of stay with them and look for anything that contradicts coming back. And what we want to do off of that is when we see an open window, we dent an open window. Or dent whoever's in that open window, which it comes back to that number 2, where there's always a run through, even if you have to make it yourself, but dent the open window as fast as possible. So once the thing, and very quickly what you start to see is, off of that, protection. Protection you can see very quickly too, because the minute you see the footwork of the back, like if they just set to the side, and they separate from it, he's already, there's no more RPO game right inside there, it's already dead. When you watch the NFL guys, because I do it at all levels, I try to do it high school, college, and the NFL, when I watch it in the off season, you see that there's some real detailed distinct one. When you watch Todd Gurley kind of like step to the side and then kind of float, and then all of a sudden he becomes like an extra add-on in the protection, in the route over there, like that's some real distinct details at the highest level, as opposed to maybe when you watch, your high school or college, like they're not coaching it like that. That guy doesn't have that kind of detail. It's not even about ability, but it's about that level of detail that's in there too. So that's one of the things I've gotten into. Everybody's kind of different. Well, I'll give you this. This is what we did. This is why I'm only putting this up here not to show scheme, but just to show concept behind it. Was when we were at Wagner, we were at 3 down front. And one of the things that we really had was we declared the 4th rusher. So when the 4th rusher was declared over here, just making sure I got this pointer thing going. You see where it is, over where the S is over there, so I don't screw up the slide. Where the 4th rusher is, we basically look and see like that safety has to account for something out there, so he's not available. So that linebacker, the inside backer, which I'm focused on, was a box player, boxing it back to each other, right? As opposed to when the safety is available, right? And this really translates to whatever your scheme is. If you have somebody to spill the ball to on the outside, or you don't, right? This is where the fundamental language came in. We want to go ahead and keep the ball carrier on an inside shoulder, and we want to go ahead and keep the ball carrier and spill it and put it on an outside shoulder. Either way, you guys have that. The reason I'm even showing this is because that helps set up everything we do for our press and our scrape. This is how we were able to translate press and scrape. Our biggest thing with 2 inside backers there, we had a hold and a run-through player. Always a hold and a run-through player. So in essence, again, it goes back with staying big. You're a 3 down front, right? You get some pro stuff. You're going to get some more outside zone. You're going to get some things to try to spread you. I'm going to have on the front side of that, I'm going to have a player that's going to stay big and be able to hold it, right? And then I have a guy who can run through. And they learn very quickly to work together. The ball's going to work back and forth to each other. Right? In essence, what we played, we were playing that 3 guys were available with the nose, were available for those 2 gaps right there at all times. Right? So we were able to go ahead and manage all that stuff inside there and be able to manipulate it and throw it back and forth. But it's just a matter of language, of being like, what shoulder do I want the ball on? Right? Do I want this ball on my inside shoulder or my outside shoulder? Really, it comes down to it, do I have help? And that translates from there. So just a quick thing on stance. I like to use the visuals of like pro players just so they kind of get there. This is how we have pre-snap demeanor. Good stance obviously important, explosive attack and blocks. Obviously everybody has something like that. One of the things, slightly bent, shoulder width apart, toes pointed inward, stepping off the insteps, arms relaxed, ready to strike, back on the feet, back flat, chest up. One of the things though that I've gotten big in over the years is if you look, a lot of us, and this is why I teach the young coaches too, a lot of us look at like the reaction drill. I have some of that stuff where we do it. One of the things I've learned to do over the years, and take this like as this, is You know, like they take that first step, right? I've learned not to look at the step. I've learned to look at the flexion and the off foot more than anything else, because that's really where like you can see that there's a strain, especially with young kids that interpret that I got to step, right? If I step down and I have my feet low to the ground, the reality is I'm going to have flexion in the off foot. That's what I want to see, is the flexion in the off foot, as opposed to a kid staying low, right, or a kid staying high and just stepping. If I step and have no flexion, right, I'm not in a good position to redirect. So biggest thing that I've kind of like gotten into is like I'll say, hey, flex the off foot. I want to see flexion in the off foot. What happens is you can't flex the off foot and stay high. So I've corrected it by saying, giving them something to do rather than something that they can interpret. Stay low goes here, right? Stay low goes here, and I still interpret to pop up high, right? Flex the off foot. That kid's thinking about the off foot right there. He can't stay high and go low at the same time. And he can't stay high, right? Go high and do that at the same time. And he's got to be able to redirect off that foot. So that off foot is a big difference there. And again, you have to flex the off foot. You have to press off the instep. If you think about your feet in the ground, you have to actually do that in one way. So I'm big on like the commands, what's something that they can manage rather than something that they interpret. Okay, because they can interpret, stay low any way they want to. Okay? And then gaps and alignments, there's no different here. I'll just fly through this. Okay? Pre-snap read, like we said, we're looking to mirror the guard on the near step. We'll go to the path of the back, as I just said before. And this is what I'm biggest on more than anything else on strike. So we get into the idea of block destruction. Okay? We get into the idea of that separation. Probably most people in the room have probably read Complete Linebacking, right? Anybody ever read Complete Linebacking, Lou Tepper? Right? Yeah, Coach Brain knows, right? So yeah, Logan. That's the Bible of like linebacker play, okay? When it comes down to it. So that whole concept of being able to go ahead and have that plant foot down, I think I read that when I was first on the train coaching high school football in the Bronx back in like 2001, and that concept still remains the same. In everything that we do, we talk about getting the plant foot down. What it's evolved into is when that plant foot is not going to be always in the same place on the body. But the concept of when I go ahead and strike, I'm going to be able to strike with my inside foot in the ground, putting that hole in front in the hoop in front of the blocker, right, and offset and be able to roll over that front foot. Or anything else. I want to be able to roll over that front foot. Where that changes, and I'll get into it, press and scrape, is that may not be in front of the body, that might be behind the body, right? But the reality is, I'm going to always end up in a triangle fashion, okay? Here's the question I ask kids all the time. I say to them, okay, when you build a house, what shape is going to be on top of the house? Right? It's going to be a triangle. It's going to be some way, shape, or form. Why? Because it can endure a lot of stress. It can endure a lot of flexibility when it comes to weather. Stuff rolls off of it, but it's there. And I say to them all the time. Okay? Ancient Egypt, they built the pyramids. They were shaped a certain way. Right? Why? Because they knew something called trial and error. They figured it out. If I build a box, it might not be there. If I build a triangle, it's a little stronger. Okay? So when we talk about this with hips and feet, I'm always constantly saying, hey, did they triangulate their feet? Right? Because I'm always thinking in terms of, is there a triangle there? No matter where it happens and what they do. If I'm going to absorb some kind of pressure, some kind of tension, okay, just like in a house, I've got to have some form of triangulation. Okay? I drive through Manhattan all the time. The big tall buildings have to have flexion. Okay? You get that high, that's what happens. Okay, you get high, you gotta have flexion. Okay? You play lower to the ground, you gotta have triangulation somewhere. Okay, you have to. Even when you look at the buildings, a lot of times they're crossed over with the flexion. There's always crosses in there. There's always stuff, load-bearing stuff in there too. So they must have the triangulation of the feet and the toes pointed forward at any point in time. So that's one of the biggest things that we harp on. Here's one of the things that I kind of learned through the years, and I just always repeat in my head. If they can't do it on air, they're not going to be able to do it versus resistance. So everything that I'm always going to harp on is going to end up being coaching from the feet to the eyes. So the feet control so much. So if I can't go ahead and get my feet in position on air, if I can't just walk that line and get myself in position, the reality is when I start adding all sorts of nuances and stimulations, like where do my hands fit, and there's resistance and all that other stuff too, it's not going to happen. All right? But one of the things you do is, when you start to see, when they start to become accustomed to where their body is and where their feet are, right? All that stuff follows pretty fast. Real fast. Because now it comes, I have a really strong foundation. I have a really strong base. And most of the kids that we have problems with, whether it be in block destruction, tackling, whatever the case may be, at whatever age, you end up seeing that they either can't get that foot down or they have the reverse foot down and they're able to turn their bodies, which does what? It ultimately gets their shoulders to not be square. Okay? If they're not square, they're not big. If they're not big, they're not strong, and they violate one of the linebacker truths. It always comes back to that. Stay as big as I can for as long as I can. Right? I can't stay big if I'm getting turned. If I can't stay turned if I'm not triangulating with the right stress point. Right? And then a lot of it comes back to being able to lean against the body. So there's some stuff in here, but like I just cut it off to the visual itself. Okay? I always kind of, and I stole this from an offensive line coach that I worked with at one point in time. He's always used to say, with this especially, ability to roll over the front foot, if you count the amount of cleats in there, there's always the front little cleats, then there's the next two cleats, and there's usually like the next two cleats there. He'd always harp on this thing, get the extra cleat into the ground. This is kind of the representation of being able to get the whole base of the foot in the ground. Right? That's where the foundation is. A lot of times guys get that, they get that. It's hard to roll over that foot if you don't get those last two cleats that are right by the arch, right by your arch of your foot, rooted in the ground long enough to be able to have a really good base to roll over. It's very difficult to roll over the front, all the way to have a couple of the toes in the ground. And it's more difficult to roll over that foot when you totally just have the back of it in the ground. So when you think about roll over, because I'm going to get into that concept of some of the drill work, I want to be able to put that on and roll over the knee of that foot. Can I roll over the knee of that, roll over my knee and roll over my front foot? Okay, because not the concept of being able to just go ahead and just stand up off of it, right? And plant up off it at all times, but be able to go ahead and get there and roll over it, ability to move forward with it in some way, shape, or form. Okay? And then we look at the hand placement. Okay? One of the things we've been harping on, obviously it's good linebacker and pad on the pad to be able to sight, but one of the things we're really harping on is strike at length. You want to be able to strike at length. So I want to be able to go ahead and have fast hands, but I want to be able to strike at length. And here's one of the things that I've been kind of getting into more than anything else, of what part of your hand you strike with. There's a lot of debate where, I guess some people say that the meaty part at the top, right? And I get that, there's interpretation with that. But then there's also one of the things, I just kind of, like, I don't know how many people have kids. Anybody ever taught a kid how to ride a bike? Any of them fall off? How about rollerblade, ice skate, any of that stuff, right? There's a reaction in our body to take on tension, right? When we put our hands down. And the reality is, when you put your hands down to protect yourself, the part right there is you're usually not protecting yourself with the palm of your hand. You're actually protecting yourself with that meaty part of your hand on the ground. If you actually go and look at some of the stuff that they sell for like protection for like what's his name, rollerblade, the hand guards and stuff, they protect that part of your hand because you anticipate your body is telling you when you go down, I'm going to protect myself with that part of my hand. So there's something that's natural about the ability to strike with that part of your hand at length. There's something natural there. Like, I study crazy crap. Like, I don't stop thinking about this stuff. Like, I go to like a toy store and I walk out and my wife's like, what did you buy? I'm like, I don't know, but this is gonna work. I have like a 40% success rate on stuff that works too. Like, you only get to see the stuff that works. Yeah, there's loads of stuff that like, I still have, one point in time I have like bells, like, you know, like you ring a ding ding ding, but like something was, my wife said, we still have like 12 bells in there. What was that for? I said,
something with block kicks back in '06 or something like that. She's like, can we get rid of the bells? I was like, this never worked out, that kind of thing. So that's my house. That's kind of how it goes. And then we get into this concept of press and scrape. So for us, and what I've learned to say is, the difference between press and scrape is when I press, I'm downhill. I'm going to have an even look at it. When I scrape, I've got to climb over somebody who else has their hand in the ground and I am now out of leverage and have to get back into leverage. Okay? And in short, one of the things I'll say is this. Coach, can I grab you? Just as the visual itself. And I use this visual there. If I'm pressing, I'm straight downhill, I've got a clear line of vision, I'm going to get that foot down and be able to go ahead and extend. Scraping, for me, means that I've got to climb over the coach's outside shoulder based on where I have to fit. And that's a technique that we use to go ahead, and I have to make a judgment on the run of where I got to get to based on where I am. Based on my depth and based on my width, I have to determine where I've got to get to the other side of coach. It potentially could be I have to work under coach to get there, but the idea is this: I am going to get that plant foot down, I am going to triangulate my body, I am going to anticipate contact afterwards. Anticipate contact after that happens. So I might have enough depth that I can get over coach, and I may have too much width that I have to work under coach, but I'm going to make that judgment. I'm going to show you how we end up coaching that up. But one of the things is this: as coach climbs, reality is, if I'm this out of leverage, I'm probably making contact with coach on the second level. When I'm pressing, I'm going to make contact with coach, try to make contact with coach on the first level, or at least put him back on the first level and get my gap and a half back. So the reality is, that big guy that's on the second level, his biggest piece of power is going to have the ability to get his hands out, and wherever I run to is his ability to push me in that direction. So I have to work in tangent with the ability to go ahead and work underneath him at an area and say, he's now taught to come out at a point and make contact, right? One way. I'm now taught to go ahead and combat that by saying he's lost what his fundamentals are. Okay? Thanks, Coach. And then, so that's the difference for us from press and scrape. So we have this thing I took from a quarterback coach years back. What they used to do, and this is probably one of my favorite things. Some people call it some different things. They call it the circle of death. I don't know how that happened. And feel free, if this is my Twitter handle down here. And I'll give you my email address. I'll send you anything. I put it all up on Twitter. I really don't care. I think that this is the greatest thing ever, the community of coaches. And nobody's stealing anything from anybody, because we have to be the human side of actually doing it. Right? That's why we coach details, you have to do it, there's no secrets, right? That's what it is. And one of the things we do is every single day, I call this the ESD-ESP. Every single day, every single block, right? Pre-practice, we do this in 5 minutes every day. That we go through every single block, every single day. What I use everywhere I go, it's got a lacrosse program, and what I do is I use the circle for the goal, right there, every day. And they line up and they go through it every day. Just keep rolling through it. And they'll start out line on line. One's the blocker, one's the defender. And the first thing they do is they get width, they gap press. They press, they get their foot down on that line. Then they scrape for skin, they get back on that line. Everything's about on the line. Everything's quick and on the line. They get a cut every day. Okay? They have to give ground, gain ground, get their foot back on that line. It's always about every day getting your foot back on the line in that circle. Because that circle, if you get your foot back on the line, in that circle, you're going to end up in triangulating. They're going to have to go ahead and clear with the pass rush and escape. They're going to get a near foot tackle that they're going to overrun them and then near foot them back into there. And then they're going to go ahead and get some depth and get a blitz takeoff, and they do it in both directions. Okay? One of the things with the near foot tackle, the reason I do that as opposed to everything else, is because what you find is, especially for the inside linebackers in short range, is that they get some width, they overrun, and then they go ahead and drop the inside foot, and they see they have to tackle, and they pull the outside foot back over. And they don't have enough time to get that foot back down and say square. So what we teach them doing that small range is the ability to get overlap, and then get that back down, and then make contact with the tackle right there. That's one of the fine arts, because a lot of times what you see is where kids end up to the side, on the back of a ball carrier, is because they drop that inside foot and roll over because they feel like they gotta tackle somebody. So we keep training them for that phone booth concept to be able to stay triangulated for near foot inside. Okay, all right, so here's like an example from last season of what we would do. I have some Maritime film, I have some Wagner film, but this is exactly how this sets up for us for this deal right here. So they go every day, bam, back on the circle, they're not great at it, okay? Obviously they shortchange it a lot, I get crazy about it, there's a whole thing, you know? And so it all comes back to having kids. They go the same way, boom, get down, press it. Get down, press it. Get down, put in the line, press it. Press it, not a great look, I want more width on it. Okay, now scrape it, get back on the line. Now they scrape, get back underneath, get back on the line. But this is an everyday thing. And this goes, there's times, and last year, that's a better one by 45, there you go, they start to stay square, get back on the line, everything. But it's like every day, like the quarterback goes through every drop and looks. This is what we do as linebackers, every day. And believe me, as head coach last year, it was great because I got into the situation, and if I got into something real fast, I turned around, it was already going. They knew exactly what it was. Right away, they kept going. Now it's a cut, get back, everything, get back on the line. Get back on the line. Get back on the line. See, now they're all saying get back on the line, I can probably venture to guess because I'm moving around saying get back on the line. Right? Because this is what we're trying to coach. Get back on that line. Get back on the line. There you go. Good. You know, and then we get them into, they should get into pass rush next. Pass rush, get something going, right? Again, everything's back on the line the entire time. Everybody's getting something, boom, boom. Some are lazier than others on different things, but believe me, they've got their heart rates up, they're going. It's a conditioning thing for them too. They got it, but we're filling everything every single day. So if they're all of a sudden I get one indie period for 5 minutes, right? Or if I have to install, or if something's happening, at minimum, I know I can check the box every single day from every single block that we've gone through it all.
Coach, in your pass rush, do you use a certain technique to the backwards?
I want to go, they need to do a great job in here. I want to clear hips. I want to go ahead. I have some stuff in there too, where we want to make sure to clear the hips and get back on the line more than anything else. I'm bigger into clear the hips, pin the elbow, clear the hips.
Okay.
I want to keep everything tight, because the reality is you're going to end up with probably them going after your thigh boards anyway. So it's going to, you know, and again, rules are what rules are, but it's like clear and pin, whatever the case may be. But the biggest thing is, I want to, in that specific area, it's going to be more than anything else. It's going to be give ground to gain ground on the cut blocks, and it's going to be clear hips and climb for the pass rush. And if they, especially young kids, when they pull their hands back never, it's like, hey, how are you going to get back on that line with your hands all the way up here? So I try to go ahead and go from the feet to the eyes, especially young kids. And then a lot of this work is the drill work from Wagner. Okay, you see, like I said before, the EDD stuff of being able to go ahead. This I'm gonna like kind of roll as it goes through, because you can see like the whole session. Like as it rolls through, we get like a reactor, teaching the young guys, look at the off foot. Okay, like see, that's not great. I said I'm looking at the off foot right there. Okay, these are some young kids in the spring ball. Okay, I want to see there's something in there with the reactor off the off foot. Okay, we'll just keep on rolling with that. And then we get some movement out of there, basically the same kind of concept, nothing really crazy. We want to get them going with that. I'm just going to forward a little bit. Yeah, movement. Okay, now this is where like it kind of constitutes where you see like now they have to like work with the off foot in order to stay low. And then here's a big one too. This goes back to everything we're asking about. We're asking about staying square. Right? This is one of my favorite things to do is the over/under, and I want to go ahead and explode out. Everything that we do teaching-wise usually ends with something, with the anticipation of something, because we play in such a tight space. So that's one of the biggest things, is I'm big on that. It becomes like, don't just stop and finish the drill. It becomes the over and the under, right? Square body, feet in front of you, keep it square, and transition out, and be able to go ahead and make contact, and I have to work with my hips. So we don't have a lot of manipulatives, because I don't believe in a lot of manipulatives, right? I'm big on let's use some of the stuff we have, especially that I have to reroute work, and I'm gonna make contact with that thing, and I don't need what's his name? The thing, Who's Watts? The boards. I don't need the boards. I have a board. I have a board already. I know I'm going to finish with hips, and I'm going to have to generate force out of that, right? I know I'm going to have to generate force because I'm going to have to go ahead and hit with my hips, hit with my chest, and then open up in order to run all the way through that back, right there. The pop-up is already in-house. Bam, I'm going to get that on it. You see the younger kids, same deal, and we off-angle it too, as much as possible, just to give some of these younger kids. And I'm big on this. I'm big on you go over where the logo is, right? And then we change the angles on them too. Feet down in front of them, the ability to explode out. Feet, 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 boom, transition out. Transition out. Right? I have to finish. I have to finish with my feet right there. Right? I can't just stop at the end. Right? We're all yelling at the drill. Finish through the line, do this. I don't yell that. Let's go. That thing's the indicator right there. If that thing doesn't pop right back up at a certain angle, you haven't hit it at a certain angle. It's going to pop right back up usually. And then see the difference is the guy is tentative. If he's not going to do that against that soft surface, that ain't going to happen against something with resistance right there. It's not. So I'm not going to bag the kid, but it's got to be teachable. It's got to become, there's something tangible. Like, man, you and I ought to get those inside run reps today. Because we're not going to give you those because that's happening. Okay, this is a little bit different, but we have our 6-point progression. Okay, going through the deal here with the 6-point. One of the things that we do, which is unique, is we get into the rolling over the front foot. Okay, we allow them to go ahead and put their cleats in the ground on this. On the 6-point, because we're just striking with the 6-point strike. Again, no different from everybody else does. We want to extend the hips. The guy on the left is a little bit more veteran. The guy on the right is younger, as you can see. Okay? And again, it's no different. We want to go ahead. As you look, the natural order of things is they're striking at length. They're striking with the meaty part of that hand at the bottom part, because that's just the natural order of things to be able to get there. Now, here's one of the things that we do when we progress it. We do it all off of one knee. Right? And one of the things we do off of one knee is we make sure that the off foot laces are tied into the ground. Because we want all of the tension and the stress put on the front foot. We are forcing them to rise and roll over the front foot on the third one, if you notice. So in essence, if you think about that, if you got that on one knee and put your laces into the ground, most of us are going to start cramping up in our feet. Because it's hard to do that. Right? And there's that ankle flexibility that you have. And a lot of times what ends up happening is those kids that aren't used to it will go ahead and curl their foot up, brace, and stand up, and then press themselves out of it. What we're building in here is the ability for them to lock in over that front foot right here, and then when they strike on the third one, roll over that thing. Roll over, put all the tension on the front foot, because on the run, when I hit that thing and roll over it, that's what we're going to end up doing. So that we're building in the press stuff. When we do our scrape stuff, here's the simple little tweak we have. We take the pop-up, that's just the PVC. So all we do is we put the PVC pipe through there, because all we're doing is when you were standing up here, coach, we're lengthening the arms. So now I'm out of leverage, I've got to get back into leverage and get back in the line. Notice, we're harping on get that foot back on the line. Re-triangulate right there. Re-triangulation right there. Boom! Get that foot back on the line. Okay? So I'm working over top. Where most guys get is they start to work in space, and they think they have to take that on. We're not taking that on. We're going to buy back that gap right there. Every single time we're going to buy that gap back. Buy it back right there. Get underneath. Okay? And then we change the angles on it too. So we'll go from both sides, and then keep. Again, I'm not using anything but what's there. They're familiar with their space. They're familiar with that circle because they've already gone through that circle, right? They've done their stuff, and they get going from there. Okay? And what we do is we change the angle there. We hard angle it. You see how they're closer? Again, everything with depth and width. So now we're going to go ahead and decrease the depth. which is going to change it that I don't get to full scale run. Now I can no longer stay big. I got to turn my shoulders and run and then get myself back into play. That's a challenge. Just do that, just walk through that, and you say to yourself, like, if I don't teach that, I can't expect that to happen. Like, I have to, now you see them that they're at a hard angle, so they have to physically, he's a younger kid, he probably needs to move closer, but again, we try to do it with a hard angle too. See how, here's the kid who's challenged, see how he has to turn and run, right? So we're teaching him, oh crap, there's wide flow, and I've got to buy it back into the gap. I'm going to turn to get back into the play and turn and run. Again, this is not something that you're designing for, because this is one of the most random games when the ball is snapped, right? It's one of the most random games. Like, you could design everything you want. Once it's snapped and something happens, it's literally like the game of Hungry Hungry Hippo. Every marble's all over the place. And all the hippos got to try to figure out, which one it is. I'm the red one, I'm the green one, whatever. And then you play like I did in Queens, where you just tilt the board and you get all the marbles. That's what I did. That's how I played. But that was very popular on my blog, I guess. But anyway, and then here we go. And then we work underneath it. We talked about it before. We're working from the inside underneath. But now there's a distinct angle, right? If I'm working underneath the block, I got to buy the gap back, which we'll harp on, which I'm probably harping on now, right? Is that I'm not just going to go ahead and get underneath the block and get vertical. If I'm getting underneath the block, that play is horizontal to me. So now we're teaching to get horizontal, I put the ground and run lateral. Run lateral from it too. Okay? See, we have to teach off of that. That's our progression off there. It's not on this film. We have to run lateral. We're not going to get square again.
So you're not when you can learn that you're not shuffling, you're turning and running.
Yeah, a lot of times we teach them one or two things. At that angle there, probably we're okay with them getting square again. But the reality is, when we lengthen them out, we're going to teach them to turn around. Notice that I also turned it, because what will happen is you're going to get where that guy feels you, and what's he going to do? He feels you're coming underneath him, and you're going to get, whoop, and then just a shove. The key is, what we're trying to do is, why the PVC is there is obviously to stay low, but it's to avoid all hand placement. We're going ahead and making sure that we avoid all possible blocker hand placement, because blocker hand placement is the only thing that throws you off your track. Because they can't go ahead and get you with length. We've determined we can't get you length because we're spacing, so blocker hand placement is going to push you. And we don't want to push it because we want to just make sure that we're always re-triangulating. Okay? One of the things we teach early in the staying square piece, this works with our tackling too, is just PVC in the back. If anybody's ever seen like that? Sorry. Is the PVC in work? This is big for us. Again, we're not adding a million manipulatives to this, but what happens is we're looking at where contact is. We introduce contact at a slower range. You notice this is only helmets. This is really non-pad. It's just with a pad out in front. Just like the drill, it's a slow down from our EDD drill or movement drill to make sure that we're really accentuating making contact. We're not necessarily going ahead and saying it's about tackling with the chest here, right? We're saying it's about being able to go ahead and make contact and then go ahead and roll the hips. This is really a focus more than anything else on our hips. That's a big one for us too. Okay, cool. I'm just looking at time, sorry. But that's just something we use. And again, this all goes back. This is just press. We're just teaching the crap out of press. We're not getting into anything crazy. And just like with scrape, I talk about the run through. This is something we've gotten into crazy with tackling. We put the bands on the bags because what happens is you have a tension that's afterwards, right? The ball carrier gets a vote in this deal too. Okay, so we want to go ahead. We change the heights. This is really what it comes down to for the hold and run through player stuff for us. So this is where you see the progression off of that, where I'm working to an angle, right? I got to work with width, and then I anticipate something off of there. And one of the things I'm doing a tackling session later, we'll get into a little bit more of this. But one of the things we do with it is that they work off of it, they get down, and we're trying to pull that bag away from them, right? So we're constantly trying to work for them with angles. That's there. They got to anticipate where they're going to hit on the body and stay off of that. But again, you see how they have to stay on the thing, right? That's there and anticipate the things working over. We just use the tension bands. I love it. I got to work out. It's good. Okay. And again, this is probably a little bit out of order, but we would probably teach this first to that, to anticipate something off of that, okay? Everything that we have, you're working off of a block, is going to anticipate the next thing that's going to happen. Right? When I learned how to teach, I learned math. One of the things I had in my first class, it stays with me for probably 30 years now, 25 years now, deduction and reason. I talk about it pretty much in everything that I coach, right? Deduction and reason. I'm going, give something to get something. I'm going here, this is the next thing that's going to happen. I'm always coaching, what's the next thing that's going to happen? What's the variable? Because we don't want it to get to a point where they've got to scrape, get back on top of that thing, and look around to make a decision. I want to be able to determine the decision there, striking. I'm here, I'm back in the play, gapped out, I'm here to strike. Okay, right away off of that too. Okay, basically the same drill off of that. And then the detail off of it is what it gets to. So now, we'll get them in that position, fit in there, and now I'm going to strike off of that. Okay, really strike off of that stuff too. So, again, to fit in there, now I want to see them go ahead and accelerate out of there. So you see we're teaching it, and then these become like not the everyday drills. These become, we're having trouble with scrape, and we're having trouble like seeing it accelerating out of it. Right? Every day we're doing the scrape footwork. Every day we're harping on that in 2 drills. But maybe one day, even a tackling drill or somewhere in there, this marries over to it. Where you notice we've got it already down close to there. Like we already did that drill. We don't need to stimulate them by like having the whole thing happen and run through space. I want the contact, I want the short angle, I want the power, I want all of that to happen right off of there. Get them in there already, get them working, go. And you notice it's all familiarity because it's the same stuff. They keep seeing the same manipulative in front of them. Oh, I'm going to work on it. And they associate it. This is scrape. Anytime that this is out like this, that's a scrape drill. I'm working right off of that. Okay? And this is like one of my favorites we did in the off season, but can translate. We all do this, right? We all do something where we press forward. Now in pass distribution, have you ever done anything where you press backwards? Think about this. Have you ever done a drill where you focused on power while looking forward and pressing backwards as linebacker? Right? Think about that. So this is one of the drills that we do with that to be able to kind of work with. There's a whole progression here where we do a lot of the reactor drill stuff, forward, backward, based on where I'm looking. Because again, distribution of the pass, stay big. Field receiver, I'm probably not going to turn over the inside arm and hit him with it as much anymore, right? I'm going to go ahead and have to pound him and see it right there, right? What happens most of the time is kids do this. Because they're running by him, and they don't stay big. Because we've never gotten, and that's what I figured out years ago, we never got to a place where I said to that kid, boom! That's what that looks like. Like that's the power angle. Think about, do that with your body. Open up your chest and reach behind you. Think about the power you have to generate and the muscle memory you have to generate to get force there and think about it control it. Right? I didn't for years. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I did. But I realized, I was like, again, going through that list, what am I asking them to do? Right? And then funneling it down and going, what is the detail of what I'm going to do? So, and this is kind of one of the interesting notes. You see, bam. Look, right away, this kid on the left, his eyes are down. Right? I'm giving you all the mistakes too. I'm not going to, hey, here's a pristine film. This is our film. Yeah, now we get it going where they have to rise up. And we're trying to explain to them, this is the first time we taught it, we're trying to explain to them, you got to go ahead and you got to get used to doing this with keeping your eyes forward. I got to keep my eyes on the decision maker, right? What are the truths? You don't throw, he's not going to throw into someone in a sight line where he's got another player. Right? So we want to stay in the sight line as long as possible. Now this is actually degree of difficulty stuff, and we stumbled upon it because we were on the field and we had to go into the tunnel because of weather, and they had their cleats on still. And I stumbled upon this on a cement floor because this was great because a couple of them slipped, but they slowed down, which was even better. So be careful. But I was like, oh, so we have to balance ourselves. So I was basically doing this on like ice skates, but that's a different story. Okay, when we were doing the drill. But again, you see, like, and again, we focused on what's happening on the bottom here, okay? Because Because now we're getting to the point where you see the other players in there too. Now he's trying to maintain eye contact with the player. Okay? Now we're doing it off of movement of there. And now we've incorporated arm movement. Because now look, right? What do I realistically have? Right? We're teaching that. Bam! I gotta be able to transition my arms from A to B. And I want to read the front tip of the shoulder. So now we're giving them the visual key. Now we're giving them that front tip of the shoulder. I'm turning, I feel somebody, boom. I throw them through the zone, and then the last one, they're standing up, no different from what we saw before. That's better from the kid on the left. And you look, again, they may not go ahead and generate total force, but they have compact force, their shoulders are still square, and they get enough on the in cut too. A little bit better. Now you see the kid on the left, because we're harping on the eye contact, he's trying. He's trying to maintain the downfield eye contact. I love this one. I actually did this one on the field too, and we do a draw drill where they have to hip flip and drive on it too. Like let's say, bam, bam, draw, and they got to jump up and then they accelerate forward. And we give them that too because we put them in a hard position and we hip flip them off the ground too. So I like that one too. On the outside, obviously that's not happening here. But you look at the kid on the left, that's pretty good. That's not bad. But you think about and believe me, it shocked me for years when I said to myself, why didn't we ever do this before? Why didn't I ever think? I'm asking them to generate force, but I'm not giving them the tools, I'm not walking with their body through the ability to generate force. I doubt that we have a weight room movement that does this. Now, here's what goes. Now we give them the forward, backward. Now we go ahead and really get going. Bam, bam. Now we step with the near foot, right? Now we're going to get press involved in there. Now we get press involved in there to stand up. So now it's like, this is burning them out. This is different now. This is a different deal. And you start to see them, they're kind of like looking, their heads are down. Because you're giving them a couple seconds, and you're like maintaining eye contact, bam, 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 boom. See what I'm saying? All reactive stuff, it's all offset. It's all, I'm feeling it from here, I'm feeling it fall from angles. And you know what? You burn them out until they can't deal with it. So I call this ability alignment. How much can you actually withstand in there too? There you go. Bam. And you get it working off in there too. Here's another angle of it. Again, this is good because the eye contact. You see he's maintaining eye contact. Especially with the pressing because he's offset. And now, remember we talked about the hand placement, right? With the hand placement, he's getting hand placement while maintaining forward eye contact and anticipating the next thing. That's why we're harping very, very big on what happens when it comes to the vision, that he can make decisions and have an action off of that too. Bam, boom. We're teaching the crap out of that. Because this is not something you can design. You can't scheme for this to happen. Like, you can scheme where you want the guy to be in the fit, you can scheme where you want to distribute, but like I said, it's hungry, hungry hippo after that, and they gotta react and go get to where they gotta get to from there. Okay? And then we also get, and you're looking at the pad stuff, getting into it, we get the butt hit cut stuff, again, off the reaction, okay? There's probably some unique stuff in there you haven't seen, but there's some butt hit cut stuff, which is more traditional, but again, it fits in with us too, because it's always fitting in with what I'm doing, just to have more of the movement off of it, where I'm gonna press, fit on the tackle in the short area, and then we're always incorporating cut, right? And we don't do great there because we want to gain ground, so give ground and then gain ground afterwards. But again, this is just now we get into some of our padded stuff as we go, like you're not doing enough of this, but it goes back to, this is where it kind of like translates for them too. Short range reaction stuff, especially for the backers. Boom, bam, and then cut. Again, not an EVD, but something we feel like we want to do in a short range, going both ways, but it, again, incorporates all the fundamentals. There's everything here is triangulation, right? But, right, you're gonna put it in a butt, we're gonna hit it, it's gonna be with the tackle, and then it's gonna be with the cut, get ground and gain ground, get back to triangulation, so it's always triangulation, it's always hip placement, it's always feet placement off of it too, right? And I have a couple clips from some stuff we did last year in here that kind of have some of it. Sorry for the moonshot bill here, but we have a beautiful place though, too. I think you could see the Queens from, you can see Queens from, watch that, yeah. The tight is better on this. So you see the tight, just a couple of the clips you see off the reeds, especially up the back side of it too, like you see, I'm sorry, the back you didn't really see, but the strain is on that too. Okay, it was a big part of it, sorry, it's here. This clip is the one I actually want you to see. You're gonna see, what we really like off here is the ability for 54, which is this side backer. Watch how he presses this guy. Boom! He gets him vertical again. Short range strike. Then he'd be able to make the tackle. Right? No different. This is a little bit more you're going to see here. The last couple of clips on the run through. Once we get done with the skyline over there. But if you watch 45 on this one, I believe it's going to be up to tight. Number 45 on the right hand side. The drill he did before with the run through. See how he anticipates it? Right there, he finds that run through. We keep preaching that. Now, I'll harp on him for some stuff. Like when it comes to it, we get that run through concept is there. There's always a run through. You gotta find, here he is again. Finds there and works his way back. And you see the physical nature of how you're able to reshape the carrier there too. I believe this one, yep, this is the last one right here. This is 54 on the run through. If you're gonna see on the left hand side. One of the things I love about this clip is how much acceleration he has because he anticipates it. Watch, he starts him on the emblem and gets him all the way to the other side of the emblem. Just because, and that really comes back from that tension. Like that kid is moving less than the tension we were pulling away from him. So when he got him, and one of the things I love about that clip is that how he reshapes that ball carrier and he gets him from one side of the logo to the other side of the logo, and he doesn't gain another yard off it too. And what we talk about a lot of times is being able to tackle angry in there, like tackle with some kind of a force, and we don't, like bringing him down is not the standard. It's not the standard. I'm going to do a tackling session a little bit later on some detailed stuff on preparation and acceleration from that too. But I'm around. I got like 2 sessions or whatever to hang out. I think we're done. Anybody have any questions? Is that good? All right, guys, thank you very much. I'm at Fordham now. Feel free, like I said, if you want to reach out, my email's out there, my info's out there. I'm on Twitter. I'll send you whatever I have that you want. I have no problem with it, but I appreciate all you guys. I love being able to talk to coaches. It's like the best part of football is being able to sit there and talk to guys, especially in the off season. I love talking technique because nobody has the marker last. In technique, right? It's not one of these things where you debate it, either you do it or you don't. Hopefully you took maybe 1 or 2 things away and bring it back to your program. Always feel free to share. But thank you guys and have a great rest of the clinic.